Do you still remember that spine-chilling sensation whenever the electronic whine pierced the air, signaling a flying saucer spinning across the deep blue sky? Back then, we were all captivated by the cold, piercing gaze of Commander Straker, only to be left frozen in horror moments later by the grisly sight of biological harvesting. But behind the lens of the darkest sci-fi series in television history lay secrets even more brutal than the script itself. Yet behind these frames of film lie some unbelievable secrets. Did you know that the pale green skin of those invaders was actually dyed using an oxygenated solution? Or that the mighty Shadow Defense Organization was run from a film studio that was on the verge of bankruptcy? And if I told you that those glamorous suits on the moon were actually scorching hot, or that protecting Earth was just a hopeless effort by heroes who had lost their family happiness, you'd understand. UFO is an empire built on contradictions that are brutally suffocating. Today, let's set aside those aerial battles between interceptor spacecraft and alien flying saucers for a moment and dive into the top-secret files to uncover 20 facts about the darkest science fiction series in television history. 20. The director didn't even try to hide this embarrassing detail, to ensure the outfits clung perfectly to. To ensure the outfits clung perfectly to every curve, the actresses were frequently required to go without underwear underneath. This put them in a really awkward spot. The female actors had to work for hours under hot studio lights in suits that didn't absorb sweat at all, with zero personal protection layer, and were even restricted from sitting or eating during takes. This was a deliberate trick to boost appeal for male viewers. The result? In those radar control scenes, you can see their skin looking unusually taut and glossy. That wasn't makeup. It was real sweat literally locked inside the tight suits. Did you notice how strange those outfits looked when you watched the show? Drop a comment below. 19. The episode Too Sensitive to Air. Think you've seen every bit of horror UFO had to offer? Did those green-skinned monsters freak you out? But for broadcasters in the 1970s, that was nothing compared to the episode called The Long Sleep. This is the one regarded as the black sheep of the series, even completely banned in many countries. Why? It featured overly realistic scenes of a character desperately trying to recover buried memories while sinking into hallucinations. But here's the ironic part. The networks gave the green light to scenes of aliens harvesting biological parts. Yet in one hallucination sequence, they decided showing someone tripping to regain their memory crossed ethical lines. 18. The purple uniforms at Moonbase once sparked huge controversy. Did you notice how all the equipment at the base was in cold gray tones? When the female pilots took their seats, the bright purple and those fake wigs created an extreme contrast. But back then, most of the production team fiercely opposed using this purple color. They argued it was way too far from military realism and undermined the seriousness of a defense organization like Shadow. The purple, combined with flashy wigs, looked more like a fashion show than a life-or-death combat base. Despite all the pushback, co-creator Sylvia Anderson stood her ground. For her, purple wasn't just about standing out under studio lights. It was a bold statement about the future, where the boundary between function and aesthetics would completely disappear. 17. The truth behind those ultra-short skirts. At Shadow's underground headquarters, the female staff regularly wore ultra-short skirts. On the surface, it just seemed to echo the mod fashion vibe of the 60s to 70s. But what's the real deal? In many scenes, the camera was deliberately positioned low, shooting upward. This made the already short skirts even more dangerous, exploiting the actress's figures in every step or tiny movement. This camera angle choice sparked real debate. Instead of focusing on the professional abilities of the female staff, the lens kept drifting to showcase their legs. 16. The see-through mesh suits of the pilots. In the scene set inside the Skydiver submarine, did you notice the outfits worn by the male pilots? Those were large mesh net shirts worn underneath their uniform jackets. The secret behind these mesh suits is their ability to show off the body to the maximum. The costume designers deliberately chose highly transparent mesh material so that whenever the pilots removed their outer jackets, their entire physiques would be fully exposed under the lights. In the 1970s, putting men in mesh clothing like that was an extremely bold move. It was a pure visual provocation that kept viewers hooked. Did you notice those mesh outfits while watching the show? Drop a comment below and let me know. 15. The horrifying truth behind the escape scene. In the scene where the submarine is damaged and the alarm blares, water blasts in with tremendous pressure from cracks in the ceiling. To make it look realistic, the filmmakers pumped in thousands of liters of water. But here's the truly terrifying part. The drainage system malfunctioned right when the cockpit was already flooded over the actors' heads. In an instant, the set turned into a sealed, water-filled box, and our actors were genuinely fighting for air. When the water rose all the way to Michael Billington's chin, the camera kept rolling relentlessly, capturing every bit of his sheer panic in his eyes. That wasn't masterful acting, it was real terror, as he realized the only exit above was completely blocked by the water pressure. In the end, the rescue team had to resort to drastic measures, literally tearing down the set to drag the cast out before things went too far. If that happened to you, what would you do? Me? I'd be so scared I'd never set foot on a film set again. 14. The darkest choice in television history. The episode, A Question of Priorities, reveals the blackest truth in TV history. Let's turn to Commander Straker. On one side, an aircraft carrying special experimental antibiotics, the last hope to save his dying son. And that very same aircraft is the only one that can stop a UFO threatening thousands of innocent lives. Without a second's hesitation, Straker chose the mission. And the result? While Straker coldly tracked those green blips on radar to destroy the enemy, somewhere else, his son took his final breath without the medicine. Was that victory worth it when the price was his own child? Straker won a battle, but he lost his entire life in that single moment. 13. The presence of dancers in a futuristic setting. In the original script, the 1980s entertainment venues were depicted boldly. Instead of just swaying to the music, you'd blush at the appearance of dancers in the most minimal, fabric-saving outfits, performing highly suggestive body dances. In reality, including these hot bombshell dancers wasn't just a cheap viewer grab tactic. The filmmakers wanted to paint a picture of a society gradually morally decaying. It's a bitterly ironic contrast. While shadow soldiers are out there risking everything and sacrificing, underground, some people are just drowning in lavish pleasures. Because of this daring content, UFO faced censorship in many countries. In some broadcast versions, those scenes were deemed too nightclub-like and were cut so the show could keep its family-friendly rating. 12. The enemy isn't aliens? As the series progresses, UFO gets darker and darker. In the episode The Cat with 10 Lives, a shocking secret is revealed. The aliens that Shadow has been destroying all this time might actually be humans. Brace yourself for this truth. Those green-skinned beings could just be soulless puppets. They might be abducted Earth people or cloned bodies remotely controlled by an alien intelligence. That means every time Shadow pilots celebrate taking down a UFO, they could be doing something utterly horrifying. Can you even imagine it? Would you still have the guts to cheer for Commander Straker after learning he might be targeting abducted victims? 11. uninvited guests, and the hunt for biological spare parts. We're all too used to alien invasion plots where they steal gold, water, or try to conquer the world. But in UFO, the filmmakers painted a much darker, spine-chilling purpose. Those green-skinned invaders are actually a species on the brink of extinction due to genetic decay. They've traveled millions of light years to search for replacement parts for their bodies. To them, Earth is a gigantic biological spare parts warehouse. Vital human organs are exactly what they need to patch together their fading lives. This revelation turns the show from sci-fi into an existential nightmare. Turns out, we're not worthy opponents in a fair war. We're simply spare parts shipments, waiting for the day we get harvested. 10. The purple hair and the sci-fi con job. If there's one icon from UFO, you'll immediately think of Lieutenant Gay Ellis in her skin-tight silver suit and that wildly rebellious purple hair. We've spilled so much ink debating its origin. Was it DNA mutation, moon radiation effects, or some futuristic genetic tweak? But get ready for the letdown. That purple has zero connection to biology or space. It was purely a practical fashion decision by co-creator Sylvia Anderson. The real reason? The studio lights made blonde hair look sunburned and washed out, while brown hair just faded into shadow. Sylvia simply thought, hey, purple will pop and stand out way better under all these lights. And that's it. An iconic design choice was really just a quick fix for lighting issues to save on post-production work. 9. The secret behind the futuristic supercar. Do you still remember Commander Straker's gull-wing supercar? Admit it, the first time you saw it glide across the screen with that sleek design and those doors flipping upward to the sky, you totally bought into the idea that 1980 would be the era of cutting-edge technology, right? But those doors never opened on their own. Right at the edge of the frame you were glued to, some poor prop guy was crouching down. Every time a door open scene came up, this guy had to summon all his strength, straining every muscle to yank the door up by hand. We were completely fooled by a combo of tape tricks and precise timing from the production crew. Turns out, the most advanced technology on set was sometimes just a strong-armed man who knew exactly when to pull the door. 8. Shadow and the sentence of memory erasure. How far would people go to protect humanity's secrets? In the world of UFO, Shadow doesn't keep the peace with promises or complicated legal paperwork. They have a much colder method. The secret lies in those small vials called amnesia. If you're just an ordinary civilian or a pilot who accidentally sees something not allowed to be seen, Shadow will dose you with a drug that wipes your memory clean. No backups, no traces. Try putting yourself in that position. You wake up and don't remember who you are or where you've been. Every personal experience stripped away in exchange for operational security. This is exactly what sets UFO apart. Commander Straker isn't your typical hero. He's someone willing to sacrifice anything to keep Earth safe. 7. The invaders don't actually have green skin. Let's talk about the invaders in UFO. The first image that pops into your head is surely those threatening beings with pale green skin. But they weren't born with green skin. That eerie hue is entirely from an oxygenated liquid pumped full into their helmets. Why do they do this? To travel across the galaxy at terrifying speeds, their bodies endure extreme G-forces, gravity. This liquid acts like a hydraulic cushion, protecting their lungs and internal organs from the crushing pressure of space. Their skin gets dyed green by this chemical throughout the long journey. To reach Earth, they have to submerge themselves in this biological solution, accepting bodily transformation just to survive the trip. 6. The obsession with physical pain. If you're the type who always squeezes your eyes shut at scenes involving devices directly messing with the body, my condolences. you've fallen right into the filmmaker's trap. They're exploiting a hardcore aspect: body horror. The eyeballs shot hits right at the fear of losing sight. The alien's equipment is designed with that icy, clinical feel, evoking surgery. Here, humans are treated like merchandise being disassembled for parts. For viewers, these sequences are a shock, turning cosmic dreams into nightmares about losing control over your own body. Is showing these boundary-pushing scenes meant to make us empathize with the victims? Or is it really just a test of how tough the audience can stomach? The answer might be in the director's sly, knowing smile. 5. The secret behind the hero's cape. Marriages dying from secrecy. UFO spends a significant amount of time exposing one harsh truth: the better shadow protects the world, the more its members suffer. The men and women of Shadow can never tell their spouses where they're going or what they're doing. Constant absences push marriages into dead ends. You've surely seen partners slowly descend into despair, suspicion, and eventually seeking affairs outside the relationship. The show reveals a brutal reality. To keep the skies peaceful, these soldiers have to become strangers in their own homes. Tears and coldness from children are the steep price they pay. 4. Ed Straker and the life of a dehumanized workaholic. Throughout the series, you see Commander Ed Straker as cold, rational, and steely. But the writers pushed his isolation to the extreme. In the original scripts, there was a very different Straker, a man clinging to fleeting relationships to cope psychologically. However, the filmmakers changed the character's core. They refined the script to turn him into a machine, obsessed only with work, viewing any personal ties or empathy as obstacles to the mission. The show created a true Iron Commander, but the cost was birthing a character called a monster. He no longer lives a human life. He exists as a function of shadow. To save the world, does one have to abandon the right to be human? It turns the noblest souls into blocks of ice, where love has no place. 3. The con job called Space, 1999. Resurrection from the ashes. Ever wonder what happens after a show gets killed off right at its peak? For UFO, the answer is a spectacular name change and makeover. Let me spill a behind-the-scenes secret the producers once tried to downplay. The legendary mid-70s hit Space, 1999, is actually a remake/rebirth of UFO. When production on a second season called UFO 1999 was gearing up, the network suddenly pulled funding. The filmmakers made an unprecedented move. Instead of scrapping the expensive props, they decided, tear it down and rebuild, but keep the core. Recognize those familiar moon-base setups? They're upgraded versions of Shadow's moon-base. The famous Eagle ships? Don't be fooled. Their DNA comes straight from UFO's interceptors. They rewrote the entire setting, recast with new actors, and turned it into a cosmic exploration journey. You could say UFO painfully sacrificed itself so Space 1999 could rise gloriously. Do you spot any similarities between the two shows? Drop a comment below. 2. Studio disaster and inconsistency. If you've ever watched UFO and felt confused by plot threads that go nowhere, or wondered why a key character suddenly vanishes without even a goodbye, here's the secret. Right in the middle of production, MGM British Studios suddenly announced it was shutting down. This bombshell forced the crew to halt everything for a full 5 months. When they tried restarting at Pinewood Studios, signature props were lost, and much of the production team and actors had moved on to new jobs. By the time cameras rolled again, many familiar faces couldn't return. As a result, they disappeared from the storyline, leaving gaping plot holes. So the crew had to film while patching things up on the fly, trying to continue a story when the most important pieces were left behind at the old studio. 1. the open ending, and humanity's doom. There was an original, ultra-dark ending idea for the series that the producers never dared air on mainstream TV. In that vision, humanity isn't on the path to victory. In fact, we've already lost long ago. Shadow is just desperately delaying the inevitable apocalypse, while the aliens have fully infiltrated every level of society. A hopeless, pitch-black conclusion so grim it was never allowed on public television. Looking back at these secrets, we see a picture of UFO that's far from the flat, typical sci-fi fare. It's a work forged from contradictions, between the glamour of silver suits and the real physical pain of the actors, between the hope of defending Earth and the brutal reality of broken families. Even after more than half a century, the image of Commander Straker with his platinum hair and icy stare stands as a reminder of the price of survival. UFO didn't just leave us iconic flying saucers or moon bases. It left a stinging question for future generations. To defeat an inhuman enemy, do we have to trade away our own humanity? The footage may be old, the effects outdated compared to 2026, but the boldness and pushing boundaries turned UFO into a dark yet proud chapter in sci-fi cinema history. We've journeyed from underground London to the moon base, peeling back the controversial corners of this series. So, after UFO, do you want me to reveal the dark secrets of another legendary show? Maybe a sci-fi classic from the same era, or a modern one you've always suspected has hidden behind-the-scenes bombshells? Let me know.